Hey guys, how's it going? So it's been reported by John Crump that rare breed triggers model FRT-15 has recently been deemed a machine gun and must fall in accordance with the National Firearms Act. Now this, I'm going to show you guys real quick here. This is on John Crump's Instagram and he's called Real John Crump. So if you go to Real John Crump on Instagram, you can go ahead and check that out. Now this appears to be a letter from the United States Department of Justice, the ATF, Tampa Field Division. And it says on the top, the case number, document 2-6, page 1 of 2. I would note there's only page 1 here, but it just simply says that this is in reference to the rare breed triggers model FRT-15, manufactured and marked by your company. This is addressed to the owner of Rare Breed Triggers. And they're basically just going through saying the NFA defines a firearm to include, in relevant part, a machine gun. According to the United States Code, they give the definition and they simply state, as the rare breed trigger is a machine gun under the NFA, it is subject to the registration, transfer, taxation, and possession restrictions applicable to these regulated weapons. Now, they don't say why. They don't actually explain because it functions this way in their opinion or that. I would suspect and hope that there's a page 2 to this letter that will be uncovered. And right now, this is the only source I have for this. So just due to the fact that there's not a lot of sources, although John Crump is a trustworthy source, we need to see the whole document. So right now, I treat this as a warning, possibly speculation. You guys should decide for yourself. But there appears to be, on the official stationery from the ATF, a determination that this rare breed trigger is now classified as a machine gun. Now, what is the rare breed trigger? I'm not an expert on one. I don't own one, although they do look pretty cool. Basically, the easiest way for me to describe it is, instead of a bump stock, it's a bump trigger. So it basically works on the same type of fashion, if you will, as a bump stock, where we know, and I talked about this a ton before they banned the bump stock, and I also warned back then that this would set a very, very slippery slope. Now, too often in the gun community, people said, well, the bump stock's just a piece of plastic. It wastes ammo. You don't need. It's a dumb range toy. Why would you need? It's just, too much money to buy the ammo. All these reasons, and people didn't seem to care about it too much, but that was besides the point. That was allowing them to open the door. They like to use this Chevron deference, which is a Supreme Court case, and it's not supposed to apply to things like this that have a potential criminal prosecution attached. And the GOA has a lawsuit about that going on right now. But it's basically this Chevron deference that they're using that says, look, an agency such as the ATF, they can interpret laws where there's any kind of ambiguity, right? Well, there's no ambiguity at all in the National Firearms Act as they define a machine gun. They talk about if it fires more than one round with a single function of the trigger. The bump stock, the trigger was functioning every single time a round was fired. And in my opinion, never owning one, but I did go to their website and look at diagrams of how it works. The trigger is functioning every time a round goes off on this rare breed trigger. So it looks a lot like the bump stock where you would apply a certain amount of pressure. The only thing that's different with this trigger compared to most conventional triggers we're familiar with is there's this little piece in the back that auto resets it. So basically, normally you reset your trigger after you pull it. Semi-automatic firearm, the gas comes down through the gas tube and an AR and impinges upon the bolt carrier. The bolt moves, resets your trigger, all that, right? Okay. Normally you have to let go of the trigger to reset it. This has a little mechanism, like a little pawl at the back. Cams, and it's like a little pawl that dangles there, and it tink, kicks your trigger forward into reset. So without you actually, really moving your finger, it makes it reset automatically, so then you can pull immediately. Now, with a certain amount of pressure, it can kind of sort of bump fire, in my opinion. This is all my opinion. Don't take any legal advice from me, but their website's still up right now, and you can go to the Rare Breed Triggers and check that out, and they show a diagram of literally how it works. Now, in my opinion only, you're still functioning the trigger and pulling it to make the next round fire. Well, again, they don't say why in this letter, and this is the only bit of evidence it looks like that any of us have right now. They're deeming it a machine gun. And there would be no grandfather for that. Because in 1986, there was a law passed called the Firearms Owners Protection Act, passed through both chambers of Congress, and signed by then-President Ronald Reagan. Now, attached to that was supposed to be a poison pill amendment, because the Firearms Owners Protection Act actually does help gun owners, right? But there was a guy named Hughes that put a poison pill amendment to try to prevent Reagan from signing it, an anti-gun legislator. Well, Reagan signed it anyways. The NRA at that time said, just sign it, and we'll get this Hughes Amendment thrown out in court because it's unconstitutional. Well, they didn't do a good job of that because it never got thrown out of court. And now the law of the land on this Firearms Owners Protection Act, as amended by Hughes, as of May of 1986, no more machine guns can be added to the registry, the National Firearms Act registry, meaning you have to have one grandfathered in that was registered before the middle of May of 1986. These were all purchased after that, just like bump stocks, so they end up in a quandary where by them making them machine guns, it makes it where only certain types of SOTs, special occupational taxpayers with a certain type of FFL, can technically still possess bump stocks, and apparently, allegedly, this rare breed trigger, right? So yeah, for probably 99.99% of the people that'll watch this, there's nothing you can do to register it if this is true. What should you do if you have one now? I wouldn't possibly give you advice on that. Look, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a cop. I don't personally care what you do. Like, why would I care what you do? But I've always been told that it's never a good idea to talk to police, okay? Not legal advice, but I've heard many good lawyers say don't talk to police. If they're going to arrest you, they're going to arrest you. You can talk yourself into handcuffs, but you can never talk yourself out of handcuffs. Remember the Bill of Rights, as much of it as we have left, which is not much. You do have the right to remain silent. I'm just telling you guys stuff you can find in the founding documents, right? So maybe just keep your mouth shut. If you're worried about it and you need legal advice, you should talk to a lawyer. You're a lawyer. I'm not one. But just according to the way the Firearms Owners Protection Act with the Hughes Amendment attached to it reads, the way the National Firearms Act reads, apparently it could be a felony, $10,000 fine, imprisonment up to 10 years. Yeah, become a prohibited person, all these different things. If convicted, could become a felon, right, if you have one of these. So I don't know. This right now appears to be legitimate by looking at it. I would personally like to see a little more. And I know John Crump, I just know him well enough. He's probably digging like crazy, trying to find anything and everything he can. But I feel he put this out there, and that's the reason why I'm talking about it right now. This is just for your entertainment as a conversation, guys. Look, I'm not, like I said, no legal advice at all in this video. And I want to be careful because this is like allegedly from a purported document that probably looks legit, but I don't know. Just wanted to put it out there too so more people can find out, because some of you have purchased these triggers. And like I said, they look pretty cool. Something I would have liked to have bought. I just really didn't know much about them. I mean, I like ARs, but I'm not like a huge AR guy, and no one's really ever asked me about one to review on the channel, or I probably would have bought one by now, but just never really heard of one, to be honest with you. I mean, I'd heard of it, but I didn't really know much about it enough to look into it. So, sorry I can't tell you guys much more about the trigger, but there were really useful videos on the company's website explaining exactly how it works. Now look, here's the deal. GOA is still suing right now in the Federal Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals in Western Michigan over the bump stocks. And this is very, very important. They won their initial decision in a 3-judge panel, but the federal government appealed it to what's called an en banc panel, which is the full panel of Circuit Court of Appeals judges, again, residing in Western Michigan. This is for the 6th Circuit. We'll see how that case works out. I think there's 15 judges on that. And this is very, very important to get behind. GOA, who is actually fighting this fight right now in that 6th Circuit. Because, look, whether Chevron deference can be applied to potentially criminal cases, which is what bump stocks are, what this obviously could be, that's a really, really big deal. Because we're getting to the point now where they're just adding legislation, in my opinion. They're adding to the legislation, not clearing up ambiguous language, not filling in blanks that the legislators left out. It's very, very clear, the definition of what a machine gun is, in my opinion, and how it operates. And I'm not a lawyer, and I don't think you need to be a lawyer. You just need to know how a gun works. And that's how I read it. But now they're just adding things, changing things, and they're saying, well, hold on a minute. If there's something where we interpret it, we have a different interpretation, you know, the ATF in this case. This applies to all the bureaucracies, all the different. It was the Department of Natural Resources as what originally was against the Chevron oil company, right? So this applies to everything, EPA, you name it, right? ATF in this case, whether they can just sit there and willy-nilly just kind of legislate laws, unelected bureaucrats that work for the executive branch. Very, very, very slippery slope. And I knew bump stocks were going to be this slippery slope. I knew it. Tried as hard as I could to fight it. I know a lot of you guys did too. I streamed like crazy, did videos like crazy. Go back and look at my other channel, my 2A EDU channel. I'm doing this over on Patriot EDU just to switch it up a little bit. But man, it doesn't seem like really many people cared about that. And I'm kind of curious. Let me know down in the comments. Do you guys care about this? I know a lot of you are already going to say, who cares? I don't own one. Hopefully not a lot of you say this, but maybe my viewers won't. I have more faith in you guys. You guys might not, but man, the gun community at large, I'm afraid they're just going to come back and say, who cares? It wastes ammo. I don't need it. It's stupid. It's too expensive. Don't have one. Look, they're just going to keep picking stuff off one at a time. Look at what they're trying to do with the reclassification of arm braces, trying to make them NFA items. The reclassification of frames, receivers, serializations, where it could just keep going and going and going. To the point where, in my opinion, they're trying to get us like most countries in Europe, where every darn part's serialized, it's all registered, it's all on a national registry through the federal government, permits, permitted use, only certain classes of people can exercise their right to keep and bear arms, but the have-nots and the plebes, the poors, are not able to, just because of all the bureaucracy, the fees, you know, lock it up at a gun club. We could just keep going on, and in my opinion, that's what they're trying to do. I mean, they want to ban them all, but this is all part of that slippery slope. And this is a big deal. This court case right now, in my opinion, could be the pendulum. Is it going to swing back more towards the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed, or is it going to swing all the way to where, hey, the Second Amendment's just a second-class right, and it's just mere suggestions, and it's just an antiquated document. We don't need that anymore. What did those old men know back then? I mean, it's 250 years old. Time to change it up. And you might be shaking your head being like, man, tell you what, there's a lot of people that think that way, unfortunately. And it's starting to become more and more prevalent. And in my opinion, it sure looks like that's where they're trying to head with all this stuff. So, should you care? In my opinion, absolutely. If you care about the Second Amendment, the First Amendment, the Fifth Amendment, if you just care about the founding documents and this grand experiment on self-governance, you should care about all of this. Because people are just going to keep sitting there, I'm afraid, too many people, and say, it doesn't apply to me. I'll be all right. I whizzed by this time. I escaped it. Until they just keep going and going and going. And all of a sudden you're like, whoa. What do you mean you're coming after my shotgun? What do you mean you're coming after my rifle? But by then they've banned so much stuff, there's nothing left. There's nobody left to fight with you. Not trying to be too cynical, but I can see what's going on here. In my opinion, just arbitrarily making things machine guns. Alright, well, more information comes out on this. I'll come back with a follow-up. Head over to Real John Crump on Instagram and check that out. And make sure you go over to his YouTube channel. I'm going to put a link to that down in the description. He put a short little blurb up, and I'm sure he'll have more information when he gets a chance. And we'll have him on this channel again to hang out soon. Alright, guys. Thanks for watching, and have a good one.